Kayla. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've watched some of my videos before. We are going to do a mid-month check-in today. I have been killing my TBR, you guys. Killing it. And so I kind of figured I would check in, a little bit of accountability for myself, as well as to keep you guys updated on my reading plans, what I've completed, what I'm currently reading, as well as my plans for the rest of the month. So the first books that I completed were The Two Towers and The Return of the King. This is my first time reading through the entirety of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And I love them. I love them so much. I think they're sad, but hopeful and beautiful, and I just love the world building, and I just think they're such great reads. I loved seeing inside Frodo's head. I love seeing the differences between the books and the movies. Obviously, that's something that every book reader, I feel like, enjoys once they finally get to the book. Well, I guess you either enjoy it or you hate the changes, but either way, I liked both. The differences between the ending of the final book and the final movie was kind of crazy to me, because when I was listening to the audiobook of it, I was on Mount Doom with Frodo and Sam, about to, you know, do the old shoot of the ring into the volcano, and I still had 8 hours, I think, of the audiobook left, and I was like, what's going on, guys? What are we gonna do? What's the plan here? What's gonna happen? Like, what is this major change that it will justify 8 more hours of audio? I don't know. I do know now. Part of it was from excerpt from The Hobbit, and so that was why it threw me off. But either way, I finished it, loved it. I highly recommend it, especially if you are an avid fantasy reader. I think it's really interesting to see the roots of so much fantasy. And even if you only read like one of them, or even if you just read The Hobbit, I think it is worthwhile to see, classical fantasy and what inspired our genre to become what it is today. So next, I finished The Shadow of the Gods, which is the first book in a new trilogy by John Gwynne. This was an ARC I received from NetGalley, and I'd never read a John Gwynne book before, and I loved this book. I did not know how I felt about it in the beginning, because I didn't jive with the writing style initially. I found it kind of repetitive, and like things were, I don't know, the sentences were almost like too short, like staccatoed, like not true sentences, just sort of thoughts, and it was kind of hard to read. I kept finding myself going back and forth thinking that I reread the same sentence, but no, it was just repeating the same words again, and it was hard to read in the beginning, I thought. But to be honest, once the story really got going and I got to know the characters and I could see how all of the things were coming together, I loved it. The chapters are really short, and that makes it easy to continue to read. I love when authors do that, especially with multiple points of view. Like, one of the issues with The Song of Ice and Fire for me is that there's so many points of view and the chapters are so long. It's like, how many pages till I get back to Arya? You know what I mean? I'll have a full review up, I believe, at some point. I know I have notes on it, so I want to film a dedicated review for that video to go up closer to release, which is in May. Next up, I have completed the first 2 books in the Inheritance trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. I have read N.K. Jemisin in the past. I started with the 5th season, which is part of the Broken Earth trilogy, as well as The City We Became, which is a newer trilogy that she has come out with, I believe, last year. And what I've taken away from her writing is that it is very sci fantasy crossover, and it always seems to have very beautiful, elevated writing that's very evocative, very emotional, as well as having underlying social issues woven in. I think the social issues are woven a little more seamlessly in the 5th season. I think it's a little more heavy-handed in The City We Became, but both of them, you can tell the writing style is N.K. Jemisin to me. The Inheritance trilogy is her first series that she published, and to me, I do not feel like the writing style is the same. Granted, I realize this is early works by her. I have enjoyed what I have read so far, but going into it, I had high expectations for the writing and just the overall feeling of the story, and for me, it's fallen a little bit short. Like, it's enjoyable. I obviously finished 2 of the 3 books, and I'm halfway through the 3rd one, but I'm feeling just kind of lukewarm about it. There's parts of it that I've really liked, and parts of it that I've been like, okay, are we done yet? And that's sort of how I'm at in the 3rd book right now. I'm halfway through it, and I'm not enjoying it right now. To me, this series feels like Greek god sort of myths, because in this, gods and their children interact with mortals, And so they're pretty crazy, they're pretty violent and brutal, as well as just, you know, having the sex with everyone, and just, I don't know, they're really good parts of this book, but it feels very much like when you read a Greek mythology story, and sort of like a one-off situation where there's this one story that follows this one story arc, and then there's like a culminating, you know, conclusion or whatever, and then that story's over, but other stories take place within the same world, and that's how it has read so far. Like the first book felt like a standalone, the second book has felt like a standalone with entirely, for the most part, different characters. Like there's some from the previous book, but the main POV is not the same as the first, and the same can be said for the third. It's a different character, and the third one, the one I'm halfway through now, the one I'm struggling with, I really liked it in the beginning. The main point of view character was like my favorite character from the first book, and we didn't see very much of him in the second book, so I was excited to see his perspective in the third book. And while the story started strong, something occurs, separates the characters, and basically decades are passing at a time, and it just seems like such a long span of time. Feels like things are just kind of happening. There's so many side characters, so many like subplots, so many, I don't know. I'm struggling with it to keep track of it, and I'm struggling with it because I feel like it's a little bit all over the place. So there's that. Those are the things that I have read, currently reading, and I'm also about to pick up Howl's Moving Castle, which is Michael Knipp's Patreon read. That is what I got from the library recently. I have the ebook of that. So those are the two things that I'm going to be focusing on. And I would like to start King of Scars on audio when I finish the final book in the Inheritance trilogy. I also want to finish up Rhythm of War, which I've listened to bits and pieces of here and there, but for the most part I haven't listened that much to it. And then physically I would like to pick up Legendborn still by Tracy Deonn, which I really wanted to read that this weekend, but we got a lot of things to do in my house, and my husband ended up having to work the entire weekend, so it was just me by myself. My mother-in-law did have my kids, which was nice, but I still had, you know, an entire kitchen to paint, and I just didn't have as much free time as I had anticipated. So I didn't get to knock out that book, but I'm hoping to get to it at some point very soon, potentially the end of this week, maybe early next week. So how are you guys doing on your TBR? How's your month been going? Is your weather nice? We have been having beautiful weather and then constant rain. But my flowers are blooming. All the bulb flowers in front of my house are popped up. There's daffodils and crocus. It's very exciting. So, well, that is it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe if you would be so kind. Hit that notification bell if you would like to be notified when I upload a video. And stay tuned, because there'll be more to come.